I would like to welcome you all to this Somerset North Planning Committee. I'm Councillor Cathy Pearce, Chair of the committee, and to my right is Councillor Matt Martin, Vice Chair. First, do some housekeeping. We're not expecting a drill fire alarm today, so if the alarm goes off, it's likely to be the real thing. So please head for the reception out through the doors to the way you came in and assemble in King Square. There are toilets in reception should you need them, and there is some water to your right on the table. Please feel free to look at the for you all, but please feel free to need some water. So this meeting is a hybrid meeting, and that means that the committee members are present in Bridgewater House, and the meeting is also available online by Teams. So please note that the meeting is being recorded. Can I remind all of those to turn your mobile phones off or to silent, and can those join us online, please turn off your cameras and microphones so that the meeting isn't disturbed. Okay. So, can I just go ahead with this preamble and then we will start? So to my left are officers from our legal and democratic team, and to my right are the officers who will present the applications. I'll the table the councillors who will debate and decide the applications. The format will be as per the published agenda, and a copy of the officer reports can be found on the council website. Each application will be taken in turn. Officers will outline each application, followed by public speaking time. Only members of the public who have registered to speak can make representation. Councillors around the table will then debate and decide each application. During the debate, there will be a proposer and a seconder for a resolution. Members will vote on the proposal. Only members who have been present throughout the application will be able to vote. The voting options are for, against, abstain and defer. Votes will be counted and the results announced. If you'll just bear with me, I'm told that the sound quality for those online isn't good. I'll just check the situation. Thank you. I am really sorry, but I'm told that the people online cannot hear clearly what's going on, and the legal committee that they have to be able to hear. So I am advised at the moment that we need to postpone this committee.
It's a question for the committee whether you want to defer recycling or if you want to adjourn stuff which should go on next.
I'm sorry, this is a changing situation actually by the moment. Can you just bear with us for a moment? We're just trying to get to the best solution. So if the meeting can go ahead this afternoon, whether it will be at least a 3 o'clock start, or whether it's best to postpone till another day when we have the IT with assurance. Thank you.
Principles. It's about integrity and about making decisions for the right reason. Planning is often a particularly emotive matter, and it's important that processes are not only carried out fairly, but appear to an unbiased observer to be so. This minimises the risk of challenge to the council and aims to protect the individual members from a conduct point of view or a conduct challenge. Under the Members' Code of Conduct, members must declare any disclosable pecuniary interests, DPIs, other registrable interests and or non-registrable interests in a matter being considered at a meeting. Guidelines on the Code of Conduct are incorporated into the agenda papers that you have before you. If you find you have a disclosable pecuniary interest, you haven't received a dispensation from the monitoring officer, you must not participate in the discussion nor vote on the matter and must leave the room during discussion of the item of business. In terms of other registrable interests, a member must disclose the interest. They may speak on the matter Only if members of the public are also allowed to speak, but otherwise must not take any part in the discussion or vote, and must not remain in the room unless they have been granted dispensation. And then finally, moving on to non-registrable interests. These under the previous regime were known as personal interests. Members must disclose a non-registrable interest at any meeting of the council committee or subcommittee where being considered at the meeting. And then finally, just a little bit about predetermination and predisposition. A member of the planning committee, if you have expressed a view on the application, in order to participate in the decision making, you will need to have an open mind about the outcome of the application and indicate that you do at the start of the meeting. However, if your mind is made up, you will vote against the application or for it, then you will be regarded as having predetermined the outcome of the application. And therefore, you will first need to declare this at the meeting and then indicate that you will speak against or for the application, but will then leave the room afterwards and not participate in the vote. This is not to be confused with predisposition. A councillor is entitled to have an express view on local matters, both general matters and more specific applications. These views may indicate that a councillor has a predisposition towards a particular policy or viewpoint. This is perfectly acceptable, and a councillor with a predisposition may take part in the decision making. A predisposition will become a predetermined if, in relation to any matter, a councillor has taken a stance which indicates that they have finally closed their mind on the matter, and that nothing they hear at the planning committee will alter their position. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Can I ask, are there any declarations of interest for either of the items on this afternoon's agenda? That is no. Thank you. So we'll go on to public speaking, public question time. As I said before in my preamble, there are a number of speakers registered to speak today. I will call you to the table when after the officer has presented the application, and then I will call you one by one to the table. So just before we go into the first application, I just for everybody, just to introduce Troy Healy, who is Area Manager South East, who is joining us today, because Troy hasn't been with this committee before, but is very it usually serves the South and East Committee. So without further ado, we will go on to agenda item 5 on pages 15 to 48, which is the planning application for land to the east of Pertwater Road, Thaxton. Libby, would you like to take us through the presentation, please?
Well, thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everybody. So, as mentioned, this is the planning application on land to the east of Pertwater Road in Thaxton for the proposed construction of 11 new dwellings with access from Pertwater Road, internal roads and footpaths, areas of open space, sustainable drainage, landscaping and associated works. So there are quite a few verbal updates to provide because the report was written up and published quite a while ago because of the dates with Christmas. So just to confirm that the application is for a major development and is being presented to committee as the officer's recommendation to refuse is contrary to the parish council's stance of support. So moving on to the verbal updates. Firstly, the fourth reason for refusal has been amended to include references to additional policies within the local plan and the Somerset Waste Core strategy. Additional comments from third parties have been received, 8 letters of objection from 2 addresses and 4 letters of support from 3 addresses. The representations do not introduce any additional points that are material planning considerations from those that have already been covered off in the report. Since the report's been issued, a letter of support has also been received from Councillor Caswell, setting out that there is support within the community and other agencies for the proposal and that affordable homes in Thaxton are needed. Additionally, an email from the Chair of Thaxton Parish Council has also been received since publication. If this had been received prior to the report being written up, I would have copied and pasted it verbatim, so I'm just going to read it out in the sort of view of fairness. So this is what the additional email says. The planning officer's assumption is that this land is recreational land. However, it specifically says allotments in the land registry title, making it unavailable for any other leisure activities. The entire site was given to the village expressly for allotments nearly 100 years ago. This is a rural, long-established parish with many of the properties enjoying large gardens. Consequently, the demand for allotments has always remained limited. Today, some 12 allotment sites have been taken up, and some of these have been divided into half or quarter plots to keep them under cultivation. The rest of the land has been traditionally grazed with no public access, and that's the situation today. The parish council considers that allowing 1 acre to be used to provide much needed affordable housing a worthwhile use of the land. The Secretary of State for Housing, Communities and Local Government gave leave for the land to be released from the allotment obligation for this affordable housing, as did the National Allotments Association. Should there be a demand for future allotments, there are still some 45 potential allotment plots available. In any event, in terms of leisure facilities, the village already has a thriving village hall, a cricket pitch, 2 football fields, a modern children's playground, an outdoor gym area with modern equipment and a community shop. The parish council has a record of responding positively to leisure needs within the community. Some years ago, a junior football team was established and still flourishes today. The parish council purchased a suitable plot for the team's use adjacent to the existing pitches, thereby allowing them access to the village hall facilities and the car park. I can see no reason why, should there ever be a demand for an additional leisure facility for our community, the parish council would not do all it could to satisfy the requirement. I can also confirm that at the several public meetings the CLT held during no questions or requests regarding further recreational sites in the village. And then the final verbal update is just to provide clarification regarding the description of the adjacent property known as Twin Elm View. So references to the report are made to a rear courtyard area. However, as will be seen in the subsequent slides, this is perhaps better described as a side patio area, which is accessed from the patio doors, which are on the side elevation of the property. Okay, so that working? Yes. Okay. So this is just reflecting in the report the key headers and also the main documents that provide the policies that are the main considerations today. So the application site is located to the east of Pertwater Road, to the north of the main built-up area of Sfaxton, as you can see is indicated by the red arrow on this plan. So Pertwater Road is a Class C road. The application site is currently a grass field. Allotments and residential development is located to the south, with isolated dwellings to the north and west, with open countryside. The red line for the planning application also includes an existing informal track that effectively runs behind those that ribbon of properties, allowing access to the allotments, which you can see on the aerial view. The application seeks consent for the erection of 11 dwellings formed by 3 blocks of properties facing into a courtyard area. The development is proposed to be accessed by a new vehicular access onto Pertwater Road, created by the removal of some hedgerow and the relocation of others to allow for visibility space. The scheme also proposes a connection to the existing track that serves the allotments. So on this slide is the original layout, which was submitted at the beginning of the planning application. Concerns were raised by officers regarding the courtyard layout due to this being considered an incongruent addition to the prevailing linear pattern of development, along with the resultant lack of a positive frontage onto Pertwater Road. Meetings both in person and online have taken place during determination of the application, setting out opposite concerns in respect to the courtyard design. Because of the rear elevations fronting Pertwater Road conflicting with prevailing pattern of development, the car dominant layout, unbalanced ridge lines, and lack of detailing on the proposed dwellings. Following the concerns being raised, a revised layout was provided to the council as shown on this slide. So this is the plan that is for determination today. Amendments are limited to the resiting of some of the parking. However, the courtyard layout with rear elevations facing the road continues to be proposed. So this slide shows some of the elevations. Concerns have been raised by officers previously mentioned regarding the unbalanced ridge lines. However, these have been retained in the revised set out drawings as shown on the slide. There have been some minor changes to the first floor windows facing Pertwater Road. However, this simply relates to the proportions and is not a substantial change. Hence why I haven't done a before and after of the elevations like I did for the site layout. The top drawing on this slide shows the elevation that is facing Pertwater Road. So this would be the frontage of the site. And you can see on that drawing as well the street scene. So that detached property to the right of the slide is the adjacent property known as Twinell View. I apologise if I'm not pronouncing that correctly, but so the drawing at the bottom of the slide then shows the elevation facing the boundary shared with that neighbouring property. So you can see on that sort of, I know, I appreciate it's small, sorry, I was trying to fit everything onto the slide, but that little drawing at the bottom sort of shows where those elevations are taken. So elevation A is the top drawing, the Purtwater Road boundary, and elevation B is the bottom drawing. This then shows the other elevations of the site. So the top drawing is facing southwest when stood within the courtyard, with the drawing at the bottom showing the rear elevations of the back block. So again, I don't know if you can see on that little drawing, but the two red lines marked C and D reflect those elevations. And then this is the final elevation drawing showing the northwest boundary. So this is E as shown on that smaller plan at the bottom. So this slide shows the proposed ground floor plan. So the terrace block to the front of the site is proposed to provide 3 2-beds and 1 3-bed, whereas the other block of 4 dwellings to the rear of the site is to provide 2 of each. The smaller block is proposed to provide a 2-bed dwelling and 2 1-bed flats, with the ground floor flat proposed to be an accessible unit. And this is then a drawing to show the proposed first floor plans of the properties. Okay, so we now move on to site photos. So I've started off this sort of collection with Google Street Images. So this is from June 2025, so pretty recent. And this is the view of Purtwater Road as you approach the site from the south. So this sort of shows the character of the existing ribbon of development along that road. And this is as you sort of continue to move up Purtwater Road towards the application site, which is indicated by the red arrow. And then this is a view of the site from the north, sort of looking back down Purtwater Road. I did a screenshot from March 2021 rather than June 2025 because of the overgrowth, but effectively, you know, that's how it would look. So we then move on to officer photos. So I have stitched a couple together just to sort of give you a better idea of the context that the application site sits. So this is the view from the top of the track that serves the allotments facing towards the south. So that property you can see is sort of in the middle of that image is Twinell View. So that's the property that's immediately adjacent to the application site. This is a view from within the application site facing towards the existing properties to the southeast. This is then views from within the site looking towards the northwest. And views from within the site towards the northeast. This is also a photo from the side patio area that serves the adjacent property Twinell View, facing towards the hedgerow where the access is to be created. So effectively the hedge where that tree is located is the boundary hedge with Purtwater Road. So the closest block of proposed dwellings is to be located approximately 4 metres from this boundary. And then this is effectively stood in the same place, just looking the other way. Okay, so we now move on to the planning considerations of this application. So in terms of the principle of development, the north area of Somerset currently cannot demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply, and therefore the tilted balance is engaged, setting out that the presumption is in favour of granting planning permission unless there is a significant and demonstrable harm that would outweigh the benefits of the scheme. This approach is echoed by policy S2 of the local plan. The application site is outside of but adjacent to the development boundary of Spaxton, a Tier 3 settlement. Policy T3A is an exception policy that allows for housing development in such locations to be supported, providing all the criteria of the policy is met. So this includes that the development fulfills an identified local housing need, that the scale of development should be appropriate to and complements the existing built form of development and provides opportunities for walking and cycling. In addition to this, the application site is within land designated as informal recreational outdoor space, as shown by the green shading on this plan. Policy D33 of the local plan sets out that development which would result in the loss of such space will not be permitted unless a replacement facility of equivalent or greater benefit is provided or an assessment has been undertaken, which has clearly shown the land to be surplus to requirement. To be clear, the policy designation does not limit the use of the land for allotments. It's the officer's understanding that there is a covenant on the land from when it had been originally given to the parish approximately 100 years ago. However, this is a separate matter to the planning policy designation made within the local plan. This criteria is a replication of the requirements set out by paragraph 104 of the NPPF in respect of recreational land. Furthermore, policy D29 of the local plan seeks to protect existing green infrastructure resources, such as informal recreation spaces like the D33 designation. So the application site is currently a grass field used for grazing, with the southeast section of the designated land used as allotments. Within the application, evidence has been provided to show that in 2019, the Secretary of State consented the disposal of land for allotment use as it was considered to be surplus to requirement. The evidence provided as part of the application pack was the decision letter from the Secretary of State. However, no details regarding the application process itself and the information required for that process have either been provided, and it's a separate process to planning. Whilst this may be the case that the Secretary of State has granted disposal of the allotment land, there is considered to be an absence of evidence to demonstrate that there has been any assessment of other possible outdoor recreational uses. As this is missing from the planning application, the LPA are unable to assess if such an exercise has been undertaken in a robust manner. Furthermore, there is also an absence of detail regarding the quality of other amenities within the area, how far distant these are from the application site, and how these could easily be accessed sustainably. The agent's rebuttal letter, which I understand has been circulated to members, sets out that the proposed development only occupies approximately 20% of the designation. However, this doesn't take into account the area of land required for BNG and to provide the attenuation basin. When you also include that area of land, this results in a total of nearly a third of the designated area forming part of this planning application. It's also noted within the rebuttal letter that reference is made to pre-app advice. So high-level pre-app advice was sought on the proposal in spring 2023, and the policy designation was unfortunately only sort of briefly covered and referenced. In terms of the planning application that's before us, planning policy have been consulted on this application, and whilst the agent's rebuttal sets out that there is potential support provided, it should be made clear that within the response from planning policy, it is set out that if it can be demonstrated as surplus to requirement, then the policy criteria would be met. However, if this is not the case, if it hasn't been demonstrated, then this could be a potential reason for refusal. As such, given the lack of evidence of alternative uses considered and the resultant impact on the integrity of the green infrastructure in the locality, and that a facility of greater or equivalent is not to be provided, the proposal is considered to conflict with policies D29 and D33 of the local plan and paragraph 104 of the NPPF. Moving on to housing mix and affordable housing. So the proposal seeks to provide a range of property sizes, and the Affordable Housing Officer has confirmed that the proposal is reflective of the local need. If consent were to be granted, the affordable homes would be secured by Section 106 for the local connection clause. So just to be clear, the proposal is that all of the 11 dwellings are to be affordable homes for people who could demonstrate a relevant local connection. As acceptable due to the edge of its settlement location, other criterion of the exceptions policy T3A, which I previously mentioned, relating to impact on character and physical identity, will need to be complied with. So whilst the criteria, one of the criterion in T3A is that it's providing a local housing need, there's also other points that need to be considered, such as character and physical identity. So we're going to now move on to sort of consideration of that and visual amenity and landscape. So just sort of reminding, showing the images again of Pertwater Road as you travel from south to north. The Pertwater Road is characterised by linear development with a positive frontage along the northeastern side of the road, which is the same side of the road that the application site is located. The properties are a mix of pairs of semi-detached dwellings, 2 blocks of terrace properties, and a detached dwelling at either end of the street. The dwellings are a mix of types with both gable and hipped roofs, and a range of external materials, including red brick, render, and clay roof tiles. And then this is a view from the north. So the application site is that grass field just to the left in that picture. And so this is looking back down along Pertwater Road. So you've gone up and now you're looking back down the way you came. So the southwestern side of the street is edged by a mature hedgerow with an isolated dwelling set approximately 45 metres from the road. Views of the rear elevations of the dwellings of Victoria Way can be viewed, which are those properties. If I can just move my cursor. So these properties here. That's the rear of the dwellings of Victoria Way. So those can be seen, however, they're not considered to form a prominent part of the character of the street theme. So considering the relevant policies, paragraph 135 of the NPPF sets out that planning decisions should ensure that developments are sympathetic to the local character and history, including the surrounding built environment and landscape setting, while not preventing or discouraging appropriate innovation or changes. Paragraph 139 also states that significant weight should be given to outstanding or innovative designs which promote high levels of sustainability or help raise the standard of design more generally in an area, so long as they fit in with the overall form and layout of their surroundings. Moving on to local plan policies, policy D2 supports development that is responsive to and reinforces local context, character, scale and distinctiveness of place, and responds positively to and reflects the particular local characteristics of the site and the identity of the surrounding area. There's also policy D19, which requires the form, bulk and design of buildings having proper regard to their context in respect of both the immediate setting and the defining characteristics of the wider local area. Due to the edge assessment location, as previously mentioned, policy T3A is relevant to this scheme. And one of the requirements of this policy is that development is well related to and complements the existing built form of the settlement, and that the scale of development should be appropriate to the size, accessibility, character and physical identity of the settlement. Additionally, last year the council also adopted the placemaking principles, within which it states that large expanses of asphalt should be resisted and design should result in an attractive and high quality environment. This is echoed by the Saxon Village Design Statement that also sets out that large expanses of tarmac and concrete for driveways should be discouraged. So as seen in the photos on the previous slides, Pertwater Road is characterised by strong linear development, with front elevations facing the road and relatively open front gardens and driveways. The application site is also in an edge assessment rural location, and therefore this adds to the sensitivity of the site. The proposal seeks to introduce an incongruent courtyard layout development to the street, which is considered to be out of keeping. Additionally, there is an absence of courtyard layouts in the vicinity. The layout also results in the rear elevation facing the road, another out of character feature. While the design does not necessarily need to be an identical replication of existing character, given that there is a strong prevailing form of development in a rural edge of a settlement location, it's not considered to be a suitable location for a differing design approach. Additionally, the courtyard design is not considered to be of high quality as required by the policies due to the issues this results in respect of waste collection and designing out crime, which will be discussed further in this presentation. It is noted that the landscape officer is supportive of the central courtyard layout. However, this is the view of one consultee and their relevant priorities and objectives. So considering the details of the proposed dwellings, the proposal seeks to finish the buildings in materials that match the surrounding vernacular by using render and red roof tiles. Additionally, the bulk of the blocks are considered to be comparable to nearby properties. Nevertheless, all of the blocks of the buildings are proposed to be finished with off-centre ridgelines. Whilst there are a variety of roof forms within the street scene, these all show a degree of symmetry. When compounded with the courtyard layout, it's considered that this too would result in an out of character addition to the street scene that would be detrimental to the visual amenity of the site. It should be noted, as previously mentioned, that during the consideration of the application, officers have sought to work with the applicant to identify the issues raised and discuss potential for alternative layouts. However, the applicant was keen to have a determination on the application as currently before members. So we then move on to residential amenity. So the application site is adjacent to a residential property currently known as Twinell View. The closest part of the development is the southwest terrace of dwellings, sited approximately 4.4 metres from the boundary shared with the existing property. It's also noticed that the northeast terrace, so essentially the back block, would introduce a new viewpoint in respect of potential overlooking, given that there are no dwellings to the rear of the existing properties along Pertwater Road. Nevertheless, given the distances of the buildings, orientation and landscaping scheme that's proposed along the boundary, it's considered that the proposal would not have a significant detrimental impact in respect of potential for overlooking, overshadowing and overdominance of existing dwelling. So can we now move on to considering potential impacts of future residents? So policies D2 and D25 of the local plan seek to support proposals that demonstrate the promotion of safety and security through design, and that proposals should not result in an unacceptable impact on the living conditions of future occupants. Considering the NPPF, it set out that planning decisions should aim to achieve places which are safe and accessible so that crime and disorder and the fear of crime do not undermine the quality of life or community cohesion. Additionally, paragraph 102A of the NPPF specifically states that planning decisions should promote public safety, taking into account security requirements by anticipating and addressing possible threats, and that the layout and design of development should include appropriate and proportionate steps to reduce vulnerability, increase resilience, and ensure public safety and security. Finally, NPPF paragraph 135F states that planning decisions should ensure that developments create places that are safe, inclusive, and accessible, which promote health and well-being with a high standard of amenity for users, and that crime and disorder and the fear of crime does not undermine the quality of life or community cohesion and resilience. So considering that policy context, the designing out crime officer for the police has been consulted and objected to the original set of drawings. Following the submission of the revised layout, the objection has been sustained. So the objections relate to a variety of things, and while some of these can be conditioned, some of the concerns raised relate directly to the proposed layout, so it's not something that we could condition, mitigate for in that way. So in particular, the designing out crime officer is concerned that the rear car parking courtyards, which have been circled on this plan, would lack a level of natural surveillance that could result in the fear of crime along with the increased risk of crime. Additionally, concerns have been raised regarding the high level of permeability of the scheme due to the layout. There's also concern that there's a lack of detail regarding the footpath connection, and also due to limited details, it's unclear if the path will be safe. Additionally, the rear boundaries were considered by the designing out crime officer to be vulnerable, as highlighted on this plan. So while still considering the residential amenity of future residents, we now look at bin collections. So the Somerset Waste Partnership Developer Guidance sets out that containers should not be transported further than 15 metres. Whilst the submitted design and access statement sets out that collections will be made either from the bin store or a communal collection point, it's unclear from the submitted drawings where this would be. Sorry, I've just slipped through. So to transport the waste containers would involve covering approximately 50 metres distance, so these red arrows effectively indicate the path you would have to take to reach the refuse parking spot. So therefore, even if the collection point was located centrally, as it's 50 metres, there would still be a need to carry the containers further than 15 metres as set out in the guidance. Policies D2 and D25 of the local plan require development to be accessible for all and should not have an unacceptable impact on the living conditions of future occupants. Additionally, paragraph 135 of the NPPF sets out that development should function well and add to the overall quality of the area, not just for the short term, but over the lifetime of development. Furthermore, policy WCS2 of the Somerset Waste Core Strategy sets out that applications for residential development should encourage the provision of adequate space, facilities and access for waste storage and collection. It's also worth noting that recently, so last year, a housing scheme in Bridgewater was refused, with one reason being to do with separation distances from waste collection points. And this was upheld by the inspector last year, and I did reference that in my report. So there was the ability to reference back to that if needed. So during the consideration of the application, officers have sought to work with the applicant. Sorry, that is a repetition of what I previously said. Okay, so notwithstanding that, therefore, it's considered to be contrary to those policies because of the concerns regarding the separation distances from the houses and the waste collection points. So notwithstanding the concerns relating to the impact of future occupiers, In respect of the designing out crime officer and bin collection points, the proposal is considered to not have a detrimental impact on future residents in respect of other elements such as national space standards, natural light levels, private external amenity space, separation distances, and potential contaminated land. However, due to the detrimental impact on the amenities of future residents that would arise due to the waste collection point separation and the fear of crime and potential increase in risk of crime that is a result of the proposed layout, it's therefore not considered to comply with the relevant policies. So moving on to highway safety and active travel, the proposal seeks to create a vehicular access onto Pertwater Road, which is a Class C road with 30-mile-an-hour posted speed limit. The access is to be created by the removal of a section of hedgerow and the relocation of existing hedgerow to allow for suitable visibility displays. Following the submission of further requested information, the Highways Authority are raising no objection, recommending conditions to secure a construction traffic management plan, details of the estate roads, delivery of the access to relevant standards, and that the visibility displays are kept clear of obstruction. In respect of active travel, the Highways Authority have recommended conditions to secure the connection to the footway that leads to the village, EV charging points, cycle storage details, and a measures-only travel plan. A Section 106 obligation has also been recommended to secure the footway along the frontage. Considering the track that leads to the village is of poor quality and has a lack of surface, if consent were to be granted, it's also considered that a Section 106 obligation to improve this is reasonable given the lack of pavement along Pertwater Road. Moving on to ecology, in respect of BNG, this is sought to be delivered on site through the landscaping strategy and tree planting and enhanced grassland to the north of the proposed development. This can be secured by Section 106 obligation to ensure implementation and maintenance along with the standard BNG condition. Considering other potential ecology impacts, the submitted ecology report identifies the site supports a number of species. The supporting information has been reviewed by SES and appropriate conditions have been recommended to secure external lighting design, construction environmental management plan, and a biodiversity enhancement plan. Moving on to surface water management, the proposed development seeks to create an infiltration basin within the improved grassland area of the BNG land to the north, which is shown in green on this plan. The LLFA originally requested additional detail, and following submission of this, the LLFA have recommended appropriate conditions to secure details and implementation of the surface water drainage strategy. And also moving on to sustainability, so if consent were to be granted, the standard water usage condition for new dwellings could be imposed. The design and access details, details proposed dwellings to be served by air source heat pumps, potential PV panel locations, EV charging points, and a fabric burst approach to the construction. And it's also proposed that a Section 106 obligation, as previously discussed, to improve the existing footpath track would also be included. So notwithstanding the officer's recommendation, the applicant has instructed for works on the Section 106 legal agreement to commence. So that's what we would call twin tracking. So the current instruction for Section 106 to secure the following planning obligations. So footpath improvement works, biodiversity net gain, affordable housing with a local connection clause, public open space management / maintenance, and proposed footway along the frontage. So considering the planning balance, the application site is within land that is designated as informal recreational outdoor space by policy D33. The proposal is not considered to comply with the requirements of the policy in respect of safeguarding the land from development, as no evidence has been provided to demonstrate consideration of an alternative use of the site or the delivery of a facility of greater or same benefit. The proposal seeks to introduce an incongruent form of development that would be detrimental to the character of the area. This is compounded by the use of unbalanced ridge lines and a lack of positive frontage onto Pertwater Road. It is noted that the north area currently does not have a 5-year housing land supply, and that development would provide a benefit in the form of 11 additional affordable houses. However, it is considered that this benefit is outweighed by the harm caused from the unjustified loss of outdoor recreational space, the detrimental impact on the character of the street scene, and the possible harm to the amenities of future occupiers that the layout results in terms of fear of crime, potential increase in risk of crime, and distances from bin collection points. As such, the officer's recommendation is to refuse for 4 reasons, and I will read these out. So the first reason is the proposed development is located within a designated informal public recreational outdoor space. Whilst confirmation has been provided from the Secretary of State regarding the disposal of allotment land, no evidence has been provided to demonstrate any alternative outdoor recreational uses have been considered, and the proposal does not provide a replacement facility of equivalent or greater benefit. As a result of the unsubstantiated loss of outdoor recreational space and lack of consideration of alternative uses, the development results in a detrimental impact on the existing green infrastructure in the vicinity and is therefore contrary to policies D29 and D30 of the Sedgemoor Local Plan and paragraph 104 of the NPPF. The second reason reads as the proposed development, by reason of the courtyard layout, unbalanced ridge lines and lack of active frontage along Pertwater Road, would result in an incongruent addition to the street scene that would have a detrimental impact on the rural character of the edge of settlement area and the linear pattern of development within the vicinity. As such, the proposal is contrary to policies T3A, D2 and D19 of the Sedgemoor Local Plan. The third reason, the proposed development, by reason of the layout and resultant lack of natural surveillance of parking areas and rear boundaries, would result in a fear of crime and potential increase in the risk of crime that would be detrimental to the residential amenity and living conditions of future occupiers, contrary to policies D2 and D25 of the local plan and paragraphs 96, 102 and 135 of the NPPF. And finally, the fourth reason reads as it has not been adequately demonstrated how the development will be served by appropriate waste collection, given the separation distance from the adopted highway, designated refuse vehicle parking and limited turning space within the site. As such, the proposal is considered contrary to policies S4, S5 and D2 of the Sedgemoor Local Plan. I think that should also read as D25 as well. Somerset Waste Core Strategy Policy WCS2, the NPPF and Somerset Waste Partnership Guidance Note for developers. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a number of public speakers on this item. We have 11 in fact. The first three listed as being supporters of the recommendation, but objection to the scheme. So I'll call those three first, and then the following speakers are objection to the recommendation but supporters for the scheme, just to avoid it's different way confusion because it's a different way.
Most speakers are in support because they want it right.
I supported the scheme, but
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah. So I'd like to call the first speaker, Christopher Morton, please, to the table.
No, he supports my recommendation.
Oh, I'm sorry, I have misunderstood that then. Sorry, as the first objector. Okay, can I call Mr. Morton? Would you like to come to the table, please? Have you registered to speak? And I will just get some clarification. Thank you.
Yes, all the names. Yeah, I think there was a system.
To avoid any confusion, I do apologise. So the first three speakers are objectors to the scheme.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. If you just, there's a grey button on your microphone. Is it on? Okay, thank you.
Okay. Can everyone hear me?
It doesn't appear to be working. But just thought,
Is there a green light, power light on there?
There is a power light on.
You might want to press the button.
Press the red button. Can anyone hear me?
let's try, yeah, one over.
Oh, it's a solution.
Can everyone hear me now?
No. Perfect. Just to say, before you start, you have 3 minutes from whenever you're ready to start. Thank you.
Okay, firstly, I don't think anyone here is arguing against the principle of affordable housing. But just because these are affordable homes, it doesn't mean they have to be built in a substandard way on an inappropriate out of village site and in a town or city, in like a town or city centre type of layout that is completely out of keeping with the rural character of the area and the ribbon settlement nature of the village. And there would obviously be road congestion and road safety and parking issues in this narrow country lane. And also, more to the point, if the developers genuinely cared about the quality of life of both the new and existing residents, they would probably instead be proposing to continue the single line of housing facing the road that is already the already existing and appropriate ribbon settlement style of the village. And this was in fact the layout that was first proposed by the developers themselves when the plans were first drawn up for these houses to be built in the centre of the village, nearer to all the village facilities. This pattern of housing facing the road would also be more in keeping with the council officer's pre-planning advice, as well as the pattern of development actually presented to the village at the last community consultation. So why are the county councillors now being asked to approve of people living all huddled up around a cramped courtyard, all want to look in on each other and all clustered around, funnily enough, our patio area in one corner of an otherwise large greenfield site? Even if these blocks of housing were turned to face the other way around, so that they were all facing outwards from the centre with their back gardens together, instead of inward looking and clustered too tightly around the courtyard or vineyard, this would increase the new residents' level of residential amenity and security. And you can read more detail about this in the email I sent to people before Christmas. But the thing that gets to us particularly is that the developers have also failed to take into account our residential amenity, our quality of life, as we are the residents in the property immediately adjacent to the site at Twinnell View. For example, our patio doors are actually on the side of our house, not the rear. And in other words, our patio doors and patio area actually face directly onto the side and courtyard, such that even inside our indoor private space, inside our kitchen, living, dining room area, people could look directly to the houses and courtyard from the new. Be looked into from the new courtyard and our area and houses, effectively forcing us to become residents of the side of this proposed courtyard. This would result not only in a loss of views, but also a loss of outlook, a loss of sunlight, and a level of overshadowing, overlooking, and loss of privacy that would be quite overbearing on us, claustrophobic and unacceptable, despite reassurances to the contrary. The noise made during construction, as well as afterwards, would be very disruptive to my income as well. I work self-employed from home, and I need peace and quiet, particularly during the working and building hours in the week. There would also be the potential risk of flooding to our property, and some of these problems might be mitigated if at least the development were particularly located a little further north in the field in question.
Thank you. Your time is up. Thank you.
Time I can actually hear that.
Yes, perfectly. Thank you. Our next objector to the scheme is Gabriel Morton Thomas, who should be joining us online. Do we have?
Can you guys hear me?
Gabriel?
Hello? Hello?
Yes.
Oh,
Okay. Yeah, can everyone in the room hear me clearly? Sorry.
yes, thank you. Can you
Okay.
hear me clearly?
Yes, yeah, no, that's all fine. Just double checking, you know how these things are.
Okay, thank you. Just let me know when you're ready to start, and we'll start the timer. And then we will let you know when you have 1 minute remaining.
Okay,
We're
perfect.
we're just turning up the volume before you start.
Thank you.
Could you
Yeah,
just,
no worries.
can everybody hear? Yeah. I think-
Hello, testing.
Okay, yes, please proceed.
Okay,
And if we do struggle to hear you, I will let you know, and we'll stop the clock.
Okay, perfect. If I'm good, then I'll start now, assuming everyone can hear. So hi, everyone. First, I just want to say I very much recognise the need for affordable housing in Spaxton and kind of across the country. I'm quite young, it's on my mind. And I think in principle, it's a really nice idea and to develop them in the village. But in their current style, as found by the experts, Amelia, they don't really work. It's rare to have community land, right? That's a rare and valuable asset. And actually what we're doing is we're cramping them all into this tiny corner with this courtyard, this really urban style, when we can actually spread them out, be consistent with the rest of the village. It's a luxury to be able to do that. And I think we should take that luxury. There are many reasons why the courtyard doesn't work, right? Amelia has talked about crime. In fact, the police have talked about crime, the waste services issues as well. And it seems like a lot of these issues are caused by that style. So in principle, nothing wrong with developing affordable housing. We need it, but I think we can do it in a much better way. We can spread them out so that they're not separate to the rest of the village, right? There's no reason that just because they're affordable, they shouldn't have the same residential amenity and privacy that the rest of us enjoy. I mean, earlier, the parish council talked about people in the village having large gardens. So, why shouldn't they have large gardens as well? So yeah, in principle, affordable housing, great idea, but I think let's spread them out, let's put them down the road, let's not make it separate. There's no need for that. And we have that luxury because the land is owned by the community. So let's take the time, it'll last many years, so let's get it right the first time so it's nice for the future residents. Yeah, that's my point.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'd now like to ask Kerry Louise Thomas to the table, please, who is the third objector to the scheme. Thank you. You have 3 minutes from when you're ready to start.
I would like to express my deep concern about the courtyard layout that developers proposed for this new housing estate. While this layout may seem to be a rather lovely way of creating community for those who've never actually lived around a courtyard, I would like to share my own experience of living around a courtyard as a young person in London. One of our near neighbours living across the courtyard had serious mental health problems, and this became a nightmare, not just for immediate neighbours, but for everybody living around that courtyard. I can assure you, unprovoked hostility, abuse and shouting and noise echoing around an entire courtyard do not create community. On the contrary, they destroy it. Indeed, community should be a matter of choice and not an imposition. In well-designed housing developments, residents are able to choose when to socialise and who to socialise with. And it doesn't matter how nice their neighbours are, being forced in close proximity with little or no respite from their neighbours doesn't work. I'm now a mental health professional, and I'm all too aware of the mental health crisis currently taking place in our society. The risk to individuals developing mental health issues is increasing at an alarming rate, and housing is undoubtedly an important factor in this. Forcing people into close proximity and confined spaces creates stress and only serves to exacerbate these issues, undermining the quality of life for all those living in these conditions. I do hope you will take this key point about courtyard living into account in your decision making today, about what is and was not acceptable in terms of layout and design, and not just rely on the ideas of those who have absolutely no experience whatsoever of actually living in these circumstances. If we're going to have affordable homes in Spaxton, we need to take the time to get it right, because bad housing will lead to unhappy people, and unhappy people will lead to an unhappy village, which will benefit no one. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'd like to ask Anthony Fetty to come to the table please, speaking on behalf of Ashley Fox MP, as a supporter of the scheme. Anthony, let us know when you're ready to start and we'll set the timer for the 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. Madam Chair and members, I'm here today representing Sir Ashley Fox MP, who's currently in Parliament. As you all well know, Spaxton is a beautiful village near Bridgewater with a strong and well-established sense of community identity. It is well served by school, village hall, community shop, church, and a wide range of local community groups. It also benefits from a good number of local employment opportunities. However, like many rural communities, Spaxton faces challenges, including public transport, broadband provision, and speeding. One of the most pressing issues, though, is the lack of affordable housing for local people within the parish boundary. In fact, no affordable housing has been built in Spaxton for around 50 years. This has made it increasingly difficult for people who work locally, who have grown up locally, and who contribute to village life to actually live there. That is why this application is so important to the future of Spaxton. Spaxton CLT is proposing a modest courtyard development of 11 affordable homes, all specifically reserved for people with a strong local connection. This is precisely the kind of community-led development that enjoys broad political support across all parties, yet all too rarely reaches this advanced stage. This is a shovel-ready scheme. It is capable of delivering generally affordable housing in a location where it is urgently needed, and I believe that alone should weigh heavily in the committee's deliberations. I am concerned, however, by the degree of emphasis officers have placed on opposition to the principle of a courtyard development. I believe that stance is both unfair and incorrect for several reasons. First, a linear form of development is simply not feasible due to the land falling away further down the lane. Second, a linear layout would require significant additional expenditure to pump sewage and water uphill to connect to the main sewer. This could seriously undermine the viability of the scheme, and I remind the committee that this is not a private development with profit margins to absorb extra costs. This is an entirely affordable housing project. Thirdly, courtyard-style developments already exist within Spaxton. This proposal is not alien to the village's built form. Most importantly, the community trust paid for pre-application advice. While the courtyard issue was raised at this stage, it was not identified as a critical concern. It is deeply troubling that a non-critical issue at pre-application has since been elevated to a potentially decisive objection, particularly after new officers became involved. In short, the reasons given for opposing this scheme are weak. The arguments in favour are far stronger, and are that the village has a clear and long-standing need for affordable housing. The scale and design will not overwhelm the village or harm its character. It will help sustain the local school and village amenities. It is a generally community-led initiative for local people. It has the support of the wider.
Thank you, Anthony. And next, ask Fletcher Robinson on a supporter of the scheme for Council Protection of Rural England, please. Again, 3 minutes from when you're ready to start.
Sorry, is this on? Yes, it is. I'll start now, if I may. CPRE Somerset wish to support this planning application for a community land trust. There is a chronic shortage of genuinely affordable social housing in the countryside, and we welcome this well-designed development. The courtyard scheme is not out of character with settlement character in the village as a whole. There is a very prominent example of historic courtyard development in Spaxton, namely the Court Farm buildings and medieval church in Splat Lane. There are also examples of backland non-linear housing development in the village at Barford Close, Cridlands Farm, Radley's Orchard, and the nearby Victoria Way development. This would weigh within an appeal inspector. From a planning policy perspective, this open space wouldn't qualify as a local green space for NPPF purposes because it's been assessed as surplus to the community's requirements. That's why the Secretary of State gave consent for its disposal. On our reading of the wording of Local Plan Policy D33, protection of existing public recreation outdoor space, which has the same wording as the NPPF paragraph 104, there is in fact no legal requirement for the applicant to demonstrate that alternative recreation uses for the site are being considered or that equivalent or better space is available. This is because being surplus to requirements is an explicit policy exception allowing deviation from the policy. The bins issue can be conditioned and councillors can decide for themselves how much weight they want to give to the crime issue in an area of very low crime. In conclusion, any impacts of this scheme are significantly and demonstrably outweighed by the benefits, and the scheme will offer its occupiers, in our view, a contemporary lifestyle in a community-centred housing development that has the safety and security of young and old at heart. The high-quality design sets a bar for rural housing developers, both for social and open market housing. In our opinion, it's an outstanding example for other parish councils to consider. It has overwhelming support in the community, and we hope that this committee will approve it today. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I now ask Hamish McGregor Harper, please, to come to the table? 3 minutes from when you're ready to start. It's all switched on.
Good afternoon, councillors. The place I have the great privilege to call home has faced many changes over the years. The introduction of a second 11, the formation of a now defunct religious sex cult, and a purpose-built, volunteer-staffed community shop. Although many people might think of villages like mine as sleepy, uninteresting, or even dormant, Spaxton residents have shown that we can move with the times and face challenges head-on with our characteristic West Country vigour and charm. Although younger people may not contribute directly, we still add to the economic and social well-being of the village. We may make our start in the world through the grey economy, sheep shearing, log splitting, tractor driving, and gardening services, activities that make the community tick. My own village life is a little unordinary, but I believe equally valuable. In the winter, I rise in the dark and quietly leave the house I've lived in for 24 years and walk the 15-minute commute to my work, Barford Park Racing Stables. The horses are fed and mucked out in the dark, and only when it's light do we ride through Barford and into Enmore. High up on our skittish mounts, we see the village come alive. Quad bikes, college buses, tractors, dog walkers, cyclists, wandering livestock. I know and they recognise me for reasons I've got to get into. It is important for me personally and professionally that I can live close to colleagues, friends and family, and to be on hand at a moment's notice, because if you're at all horsey, you know that thoroughbreds have very little self-preservation. It is unreasonable for me to continue living at home, but now it is impossible for me to afford to do anything else. I understand the concerns a few people have about more houses in the village. Like others, I'm concerned about traffic, the paving over of perfectly good farmland, and the onslaught of Hinkley Pointers. But I'm a realist, and I know that without the CLT and its much needed proposed project, I and others like me would be priced out of this village and the surrounding ones. This would affect my well-being and the chances of continuing to do the job I love. Without truly affordable homes that enable younger people to stay in their villages, Spaxton's chances of continuing to be a vibrant social community will disappear. Although it's a great honour to speak here today, I'm at home in Spaxton. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker in support of the scheme is Rebecca Randall, who I believe is joining us online.
Hello, can you hear me?
Oh, excellent, thank you very much. Let us know when you are ready to start. We'll set the timer and then we'll let you know when you have 1 minute left.
Thank you. I'll start now. I'm Rebecca. I'm not the planning agent for this application. I was the planning agent for a previous rural exception site in the village, which was refused planning permission around 10 years ago. Nothing has happened on affordable housing needs since, thank God for the CLT. This application, 11 affordable homes for local families within a 100% affordable housing scheme, I just think is amazing. Full site selection process by the community, led by a volunteer CLT with support from the majority of the villagers in Spaxton. This is no mean feat, and I really do commend them. You've heard already, it's been 50 years since the last affordable home was built in Spaxton. Sadly, this doesn't surprise me because I know all too well, working in the local area, the acute affordability issues that our Somerset rural villages have, and Spaxton is no exception. The Somerset Council's own affordable housing officer confirms an affordable housing need for 26 local families. This has grown massively since I was dealing with the housing needs survey back in 2017. I really do hear what the officers say about the proposed design, and I'm really not here to undermine them at all. I have great respect for them. Officers are doing their job and they're applying what I would say are generally accepted good design principles. On the other hand, the CLT is applying the extensive feedback that it's been provided by the community. To my mind, this is my opinion, getting affordable homes built in a location, layout and design that is broadly supported by the community should hold the greatest weight when it comes to a rural exception site. As a planning agent, a fresh application with a redesign is no small task and may very well stop the scheme altogether. Rural exception schemes fail so easily. Certainly, it'll introduce tens of thousands of pounds of more consultancy fees, introduce further delays which will allow build costs to rise, for planning rules to change, more time for local families to have to move elsewhere because they can't wait, as we've just heard. If a redesign means that even one house is lost on the scheme, that is one less affordable home in Spaxton that, based on past delivery rates, simply just won't get built. One more local family that will not get the house that they need. So today it simply comes down to, do members feel so strongly about the current design, which is the local preferred scheme in the majority, that they would refuse planning permission? Is the need to protect recreational space in Spaxton more important than building affordable homes? I'm being forthright, I know I am, and please forgive me, but I really don't think I'm being dramatic in saying that this is a once in a generation opportunity for the village in this planning application. Please don't let the CLT's years of hard work go to waste and another decade pass before a decision is made to grant permission and get the next generation of affordable homes built in Spaxton. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd now like to ask Paul Richard, please, to the microphone. 3 minutes, just let us know when you're ready to start, please.
Thanks. The CLT has been very careful to select an architect with proven expertise in landscape sensitivities and building context, as well as in social housing. I'm going to read their statement. We've been working with the CLT for almost 4 years and have got to know Spaxton and its residents very well. We've been inspired by the care, ambition and patience that they have shown in bringing forward this scheme over that period. The scheme proposes to address urgent local housing needs while respecting the village's historical character. Although the planning authority has noted a preference for a linear development, the courtyard model carries several distinct advantages that make it the most viable and appropriate option for this site. The courtyard design will foster a strong sense of community among residents, with a shared central green space encouraging social interaction, neighbourliness and mutual support, as well as a joint responsibility for the whole area that they will be living in. This has proven benefits for well-being and cohesion, particularly in small villages where social fabric is vital to sustaining local services and community life. The design also offers enhanced safety and with vehicles away from front doors and spaces where children might play, and it increases passive surveillance, not crime, which is particularly beneficial for families with children and for older residents. It should be noted that the courtyard scheme is also no more dense than adjacent buildings. Architecturally, this layout follows the pattern of Spaxton's rural vernacular, which over centuries has consisted of clusters of buildings around shared spaces. The proposal would allow the houses to sit well with the natural contours of the site, minimise the obstruction of views across the open countryside, and achieve greater efficiency in land use, reducing the amount of hard-standing concrete compared to linear suburban forms. But we must also address the technical problems arising from the linear arrangement. In that form, the houses would require an extravagant new drainage system pumping station rather than the gravity system currently designed. Also, in order to retain the valuable mature edge of the boundary, a new tarmac road would need to run the entire length of the site parallel to the lane. The proposed design is inherently sustainable. Compact form of these terraces is efficient in minimising heat loss, and renewable energy is integrated with a combination of photovoltaics and air source heat pumps. The house's modest scale and choice of finishes with coloured render and masonry will take their inspiration from the old buildings in the village. In summary, the courtyard scheme offers an appropriate and sensitive response to Spaxton's housing needs, pays respect to rural landscape, promotes social cohesion and supports local identity through a design reflecting the established architectural forms of this area. With no insurmountable objections from highways, landscape or ecology agencies, and with strong support from the CPRE and most local residents, we believe this 100% affordable scheme would be an exemplar.
Thank you. And I now ask Simon Stretton of Saxton Parish Council to come to the table, please. Again, 3 minutes from when you're ready to start.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Simon Stratton, Chair of Saxton Parish Council. I've been on the council 15 years, Chair 10. I'm hoping to retire in May, reaching the grand old age of 80. And I'd like to see these houses built. I really would. Now, Saxton is a small village. It's a civil parish and it's on the Quantocks. No shortage of leisure land anywhere on the Quantocks. We can walk out of our gardens onto the Quantocks. The village is about 5 miles west of Bridge. Other settlements in the parish include Charlage, Courtway, Four Forks, Bottomley Green, Merridge and Splat. Population of the village in the 21 census was 1,051, spread across 400 houses and a very large geographic area. You wouldn't want our hedge cutting bill. Our community assets, you've heard some of these: village school, good village hall, playing fields, an outdoor gym area, the children's play area, a public house, a parish church, and an award-winning community shop run by the residents of the village. We have very active societies and sports clubs, including cricket, football teams of all ages. However, such a location in the rural nature of this requires some positive actions to sustain it. As of today, all the homes in the village for sale are one. There's only one that's under £500,000. Poor young people don't stand a chance. They need these houses. And as for rentals, well, until Hinckley's finished, there are no rentals available. They are fully occupied. We started this exercise way back in 2011 with Sedgemoor District Council. We had a housing association involved, and I'm afraid it was done unto us. No democratic process whatsoever. We were given a plan that we didn't like on a site that wasn't suitable, and as such, none of us could support it, and it never went forward to planning. This one is so different. We didn't give up. We formed the CLT. We've supported them along their route, and they've taken time to consult with the village, with the parishioners, and put forward the plan they have today. You have heard that we were required the Secretary of State's permission. We also had to have the National Allotments Association permission, funny enough, because the Secretary of State wouldn't give his permission until then. Thank you.
Thank you. I would now like to ask Councillor Michael Cattell to the table, please. You know, you have 3 minutes, just let us know when you're ready to start.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I don't know why. Everything that could possibly be said has been said by the people behind me. But anybody that knows Saxton and the surrounding area will know what a vibrant and wonderful place it is. I can say that because my family originated on Ramsey Common, which is part of it. And the houses that the planning officer so eloquently pointed out were actually built by that lot over there, the Rural District Council. But if you take from my ancestors back a bit, the last job with all the houses around Garewater Road and Sprat Lane and all around there were built by Edward Stanley and Mary Stanley, both people we know very well in this town. Now, if you look at Spaxton as a community, it's wonderful. They banded together with help from places, and they've actually got their own community shop run by volunteers. There's football teams there. So where this business about recreation space comes from, I don't know. Football teams, cricket teams. There's actually a play area opposite the village hall, which they have a wonderful village hall. Courtyards. Well, I can think of 3 in the area, Spaxton. We have the Larches, which some of us may remember you voted on some time ago. Victoria Way, where the old Victoria Inn used to be. And of course, the land at the back of the old Agapenemy, which is largely bungalows set cheap by jowl against historic buildings. So let's have another look at other things that we should be looking at. There is, reported by Sedgemoor District Council, I'm wary of the time, a lack of affordable houses in Spaxton. This is not a big housing scheme where the developer will play the affordability card and get out of it. This is required by the parish and by the people of Spaxton for their generations to come. It is their scheme. They want it. And you have to take notice of that. This is not a fly-by-night scheme. This is for them. 90% of the people, 97% of people in the village supported it. I ask you to do exactly the same. Thank you.
Thank you. And our final speaker on this application is Elizabeth Fitz of Black Box Planning. 3 minutes from when you're ready to start, please.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, members of the Planning Committee. Hopefully, you've all had a chance to read the comprehensive applicant response to the matters raised. As such, I'm just going to highlight some of the relevant planning policy context. With regard to the principle of development, the National Planning Policy Framework signals positive support for community-led affordable housing development of paragraph 74. This is exactly the type of scheme that the national policy had in mind when it was first introduced. The scheme fully accords with policy T3A, especially in light of the support it's received from the Parish Council, local community, and other local stakeholders. The Parish Council have detailed there are significant recreational space available within the village, and our letter is explaining that allotment and play space provision are both 4 times the required standard in Spaxton, and that the public open space provision is 15 times the required standard in the wider area. So clearly, this demonstrates that the land is surplus to requirements as in accordance with D33. Reasons for refusal have also been put forward relating to design. This is a matter which is highly subjective, and is naturally one that allows officers, the applicant, and members to come to different views, given the material considerations. The applicant considers that responding positively to the character and identity of the surrounding area, in accordance with policy D2, does not simply require a replication of what's gone before. It instead requires a high quality and positive response to the local context and the site's opportunities and traits. Notably, the landscape officer comments have supported the proposed layout and design and have endorsed the approach taken by the applicant. In our letter, we have listed the very significant planning benefits of the scheme and would like to take this opportunity to remind members that the tilted balance is engaged. Therefore, to justify a refusal, any harms need to significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits. Some of these benefits are 11 new affordable homes to meet identified needs. This is in the context of 12,000 households currently sat on that register. A genuinely community-led development, on-site biodiversity net gain, sustainability benefits with air source heat pumps and PV panels on every property, and a footpath upgrade. There are no outstanding technical objections from statutory consultees, and the application has achieved an impressive level of stakeholder support from the local community, political support, and from bodies such as the CPRE, many of whom have spoken today. I really hope that members feel able to positively support this community-led affordable housing development, given the material planning considerations before them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Before I go to members, officers, is there anything that you would wish to respond to, please, from the speakers?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, just a couple of points. So I think I'm hoping it was clear in my presentation. We do recognise that there is a need for affordable housing in Thaxton. That is confirmed. However, it has to comply with the relevant policies and where you've got this designation on the land. So paragraph 104 of the NPPF, which was referenced to by one of the speakers, sorry, I'm going to have to read it out from my phone because the Wi-Fi is terrible. So it says an assessment, so existing open space, sports and recreational buildings and land, including playing fields and formal play spaces, should not be built on unless, and there's three things, and the first one is the most relevant to this. An assessment has been undertaken which has clearly shown the open space, buildings or land to be surplus to requirements. And that is effectively the same text that's used in policy D33 of the local plan. It is noted that there is consent from the Secretary. However, what is lacking from the application is an assessment that there is not a requirement for this land to be used for another outdoor recreational use. I note the references to the existing amenities in the village. However, there's no assessment that's been undertaken regarding the quality of these amenities or the distance of these amenities, particularly from the application site. So I just wanted to make that clear. I think that was all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Right, members. First of all, Councillor Martin.
Excellent. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Billy. That was an extraordinary presentation in length and breadth. Well done. We've heard a lot from members of the public, and I wrote down an awful lot of questions, and most of them were answered, which was excellent. And really, I've only got a couple of technical questions regarding the development itself. I can't see any direct problem with the development at all. It seems that the community needs it and this would provide it. Two questions that I do have is that with the refuse collection, why was it not decided to develop a swept path from the location up into the courtyard area itself? That seemed to be an easy solution. There clearly was a reason for it. I just can't imagine what it is. I mean, there's not short of space there. And a complaint that we got earlier on in the conversation, why is it sited facing south towards the existing properties rather than facing away from them? Aside from that, everything was answered. So if you have an answer towards those, you don't.
No, all I would say is that the application is before members as highlighted in the report. There've been quite extensive discussions with myself and the applicant team, both in person and online, raising my concerns regarding the design. However, the applicant wishes the scheme before us to be determined.
Okay, thank you. I mean, if I were to complain about anything, and there's very little to complain about, I think, is the fact that the refuse collection seems a bit clunky, and I'd like it to be facing away from the existing. Aside from that, I'm happy. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Hendry.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, public. I don't want to sound as if I'm for or against that this minute sign, but just to clear something up here about this courtyard business. One of the public stated, and it's their opinion, fine, that if there was somebody with mental health problems, it may cause mayhem in amongst the other residents. Well, fortunately or unfortunately, beside their venture on, you could say that about a cul-de-sac. You look at a cul-de-sac of houses, and you have somebody with a problem, which comes out and causes mayhem in the cul-de-sac. And further, who's to say you will have a problem person within these houses? Everybody might be really nice and absolutely great with each other. So I think the negativity around the courtyard is a little bit unjustified. I think it is, because if you're a cul-de-sac, you have the same problem. But I don't want to look as if I'm for or against. I'm just pointing out something that's where cul-de-sac business. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do you have any other members wishing to speak or ask questions? Councillor Bradford, then Councillor Philmark.
Thank you, Chairman. I've never seen a planning application come forward actually with so many speakers and so many pluses. Obviously, there is minuses. Everybody's entitled to their view, but I see 97% of the people at Spaxton are in favour of this. And wouldn't most villages in the area relish a development like this? They really, really would. But that is difficult sometimes because of the objectives. Believe you me, they seem to be getting worse in the villages I represent anyhow. So really, going forward, I really can't see a lot wrong with this. I'm sorry to go against the planning officer, actually put so much work in that presentation today. And all these speakers, I really can't see a great deal wrong with it. There's only one thing that my colleague, Councillor Hendry, said on my left here regarding the disposal, the turning of lorries and amounts, cannot be addressed in any way at all. Because I know Spaxton very well. I played cricket there, I played football there. In fact, I got a Quantock Hills meeting there on Wednesday, and I do know the place very well, so I know exactly what we're talking about. So, and I just wonder if that issue could be addressed. And if it could be addressed, then I'd have no problem taking in moving this planning application forward. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Councillor Bradford. So, as I previously reiterated, the scheme is before members as is. There's been quite extensive dialogue about concerns, but the applicant team, rather, because it's not one person, wishes this to be determined as is. Just to a couple other comments, just to mop up this statistic about 90% of Spaxton. I haven't actually seen or understand who was asked, so I'm not sure where that figure's been calculated for. I know it was in one of the representations, so just comment from me on that. And then sort of just moving on to what Councillor Hendry said about a cul-de-sac, I guess, whilst the fear of crime relates to surveillance and the permeability of the scheme, you know, the designing out crime officer did have it provided a very detailed objection in both rounds of consultation, raising concerns that fundamentally relate to the courtyard layout. I think that's everything, isn't it, at this time?
Thank you. Councillor Filmer.
Thank you. Again, I mean, as was said, it's been a very comprehensive report and a lot of speakers. And I do understand where the officer is coming from, so I'll say that to start with before I go off piece. I think with all of this, with any planning application, it's a balance between the pros and the cons, and this one's got a mixture. To see the community support for a local affordable housing scheme that we've seen here today is quite unusual. In the sort of level that we've seen. I do understand the concerns that have been raised by the officer in relation to design. I must admit, it wouldn't be where I would necessarily start from, but ultimately, is that bad enough to go against the affordable housing benefit and the other elements? And I probably don't think it is. If the development was nearer to the road and more open, I think I would have more concern. My understanding is they're relocating the hedge back, and you've got a green space at the front, and in effect, the properties you can see there are back in line with the existing dwellings. So they're not road frontage. If it was road frontage back of the houses, I would be more concerned. The fact that this is set back behind the hedge, behind the parking, behind the little access road as well, I think it will have less of an impact on the street scene because of the sheer nature of the way that would reduce it in the visual impact. Affordable housing is a massive issue for all rural areas, and so to see a community land trust come through and develop this is positive. I think those who were on Sedgemoor will remember another village with a community land trust where almost war broke out in the village over the development there. So these things are not easy, and for them to get to this point, I think is a credit to them. The issue that was brought up in terms of the facilities provided and whether there's been an assessment or not. To me, to some extent, I think as a member, I would be relatively reassured by the assessment that's being carried out by the parish council, who ultimately are the custodians of the community in that area. The level of amenity that we've heard that Spaxton has got in terms of football, cricket, community shop, everything else, I think a lot of us in the rural areas would give our IT for that level of community facilities. And for that is, in our own terms, it's over provided as to what it actually technically needs. For me, meets that criteria of it has been, to some extent, we're making that assessment as well today. So I can see the policy reason why. I think we could argue that there is a way of saying that has been met. In terms of the off-centre ridge, again, it's not particularly a design that I would go for, and it doesn't have chimneys, so I'm not happy with that either. But again, is it something that would make it so untenable? For me, it doesn't. Ultimately, we've got community support, parish support, the local ward councillors support. If it was a major problem in that instance, I think we wouldn't have that. So I would be leaning certainly at the moment in terms of seeing this go through and be granted. But I do understand exactly why the recommendation had to come before us in the way that it has.
Thank you. Can I just say something, Chair? Yes. Just on your comments, Councillor Filmer, about the assessment. So yes, there's certainly been informal representations made about the amenities available in Spaxton. However, an assessment has not taken place, and the policy and the NPPF is quite clear on that, and that hasn't formed part of the planning application submission. So that has to form part of the determination. Thank you.
Thank you. I wasn't sure who was first, Councillor Ham or Councillor Murphy. Councillor Ham first. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I've just got a question really, which I don't think have been answered in this, but I might have missed them. What are the specific, the report was very good, well done. What are the specific crime issues that the police are worried about from this design? We've got in Axbridge, we've got a cul-de-sac, not a courtyard like that, but that consists of a similar number of affordable homes, all opening into the road. And there's no indicator, all being lived in by local families who needed affordable homes, and it's been a huge success.
Yes, I can answer that. So the full detailed comments are on the website. I can't remember them all off by heart. There are some things which could be conditioned. I would agree with that. The main concerns, which are things that can't be conditioned. So just to sort of go back to my slides. So the car parking. So where you've got these rear courtyards, which I've circled in yellow, there's considered to be a lack of natural surveillance. So the parking sort of along the front, because you've got the rears of houses facing onto that and the separation distance. And then with the parking area to the sort of top corner, again, lack of natural surveillance because of not having sort of many of the houses directly overlooking that area. So they also asked for further details of lighting and landscaping strategy. Again, those are things that can be conditioned. And the other concern that they raised, which again relates to the layout and isn't necessarily something that we could condition for, was their concern about the high degree of permeability. So where you have, whilst permeability can be seen as a good thing because it can encourage sustainable modes of transport, there's a concern, there's that balance, isn't there? Is it too permeable? So they were concerned about this connection point to the access track. Because of the lack of detail regarding the footpath, they weren't sure about how safe that would be. But also then where you have these rear boundaries, so they sort of go out directly onto that field, but also, there was a concern that anyone going along that track could then be tempted to potentially go along the rears of those houses because there isn't, say, a gate shutting that off or things like that. So it's lots of things that they came onto, but these were perhaps the main headlines that relate directly to the layout.
Sorry, can I just ask further? So are they totally open to the track? They're not fenced off or anything like that?
So you can sort of just about see where the fences are proposed, but so they've each got their individual gardens fenced off. And then the tracks, they're sort of shown to be a gate. It's not clear how that gate would be managed. Would it be, a passcode, for instance, for the residents? Whilst that could be conditioned, there is that lack of detail. So that's something that perhaps could be mitigated for. However, with the parking layout, we can't really mitigate for that because that is the layout that's proposed.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Murphy.
May I ask a question about permeability? I assume that are you showing here at the very back there's its garden? could you point out the parking spaces to me?
Inside the yellow.
Inside the yellow.
Yes, if I show it more zoomed in plan, maybe that will help.
I mean, I detect in the language that's being used a great deal of opinions. You're picking up opinions and joining up the dots in some respects to create this rather strange feeling of insecurity. And yet, there are people here who spoke quite, I must say, very adequately and very eloquently, many of you, if not all of you. And I thought it was more or less, someone said quite clearly, they didn't have any crime in that area. They had no crime of that nature in that area, of houses being burgled or, you know, who knows, I don't know if that's the case, but that came out very loudly and clearly to me that we were having a concern for an area that was obviously a joy to live in, with its amenities, facilities. It's I think the community effort here and commitment is quite astonishing. And the fact that this is the first time in 50 years that you've managed to get affordable housing, and then we have a person telling us that everything is £500,000. Young people haven't got a hope, not just young people, couples, people who are going to be the breath that comes into this town. So I would say that on balance, looking at the other thing that I thought too was quite interesting, when we developed this whole question of the courtyard, I have to tell you, I was sitting here thinking of a Dickensian courtyard. I thought we're going to see something where, you know, people could actually lean over the fence and dump their rubbish into someone else's garden. It's not like that. Different. And yes, I can understand that if you have someone who is, forgive me saying this, someone who is in a mental state and kicks off from time to time, maybe that is something that would be difficult to deal with. But there are social work systems. There are people who can be called. There are people who can take care of that. And I think that's something that we have to take care of. So under the circumstances, and looking at what I've seen, what I've heard so far, very eloquently, and I have to say, excellently presented by the officer. Frankly, I can only say really very great details, tremendous. Well done. But in my case, I would say we've got this far, and I think we need to nudge this over the line. I certainly will be voting for that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Hendry.
Thank you, Chair. You'll be sick of hearing, you know. Maybe I picked something up completely wrong, but just something. I might be wrong with the figures, but the case officer will put me right, I'm sure. I hadn't mentioned a leap or at least a lap in the conversation at all, but somebody did mention about children's playground within the village. Am I not right in saying that 10 properties or over have to have a lap at least, if not a leap? A lap just on its own. I think I've got that right, and they have to be within 50 metres of the properties. Is that correct or not?
We're just trying to find the policy, just to. So policy D34, I'll just read it out. So it says all new housing developments of 8 or more dwellings, which can potentially be occupied by a household with children, should include appropriate provision for children's outdoor play space. So then the reason why we're not pushing for a lap or a leap in this case is because of the benefit of affordable housing. So that's become part of the plan of balance. So there's been a judgment that's been made, and I think the landscape officer as well confirmed that because there's still a good amount of open space that's been provided in the form of the central courtyard and the landscaping strategy, that it wasn't considered something that we would necessarily push back on in this case. In terms of the play area, I can show you on the aerial. I think it's.
Well, that thing, right.
Sorry.
On the very east, west boundary.
Sorry, on the west boundary.
Yeah. 4 trees next to the disabled parking spot.
Oh, sorry, you're talking about yeah. So there is some. That's what I mean. There is some green space within the community, within the development itself. So it was a judgment call. on that policy.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Chair.
Yes.
Thank you. I think it's a little bit ambiguous, all this. If the figures are 8, I thought they were 10, but that's regardless. So the figures are 8, then it can't just stand for one development and not every other one. And it's okay to say an open space, but when you get that kind of provision on that type of development, you find people walking about with dogs on there, and then you finish up with actual dog mess sometimes. And I'm not saying that's every time, but sometimes on that kind of development, you would see finish up dog walkers, etc., and what goes with it. And even if they have an open space, the contractor should be putting something in there for children, because there's nobody to say you want a children in every single property. So something should be provided. And if this goes ahead today, that should be a condition, in my opinion. Okay, I know it's not mandatory, but just my opinion, they should do better than that. And furthermore to this, I agree with everything every councillor has said here. I've watched the presentation, absolutely first class, no faults whatsoever. I've listened to all the councillors here and I've listened to the public, and the balance of probabilities is more a good thing than a not so good thing. Now, Councillor Bradford, I think he proposed to accept this, did you, Councillor Bradford? He did. I did earlier on. I'm happy to second this, and I don't like to go against you, officer, but that's my opinion at this minute. I'm quite happy to second it on the back of everything's been said and I've just said. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hendry. And I too would like to thank the officer for the comprehensive report that has helped us. But I'm certainly picking up through councillors around the table a desire to support the scheme and refusal of the recommendation. But then we will need a policy to support that, won't we, in terms of the proposal going forward. I think policy T3A, I am thinking would be the main big, because the benefits of the affordable housing, it appears to certainly members that have spoken, outweigh the negatives of the policies that were put forward for refusal. But I will take advice.
Yep, so if you're looking at it coming forward because of the tilted balance being engaged with the lack of 5-year housing land supply, so that would be reference back to paragraph 11 of the NPPF and policy S2. Yeah.
Okay, and there were also some conditions that would need to be attached. Yeah. The section 106 regarding the improvement to the footpaths. There were the drainage flood prevention measures on there. Is there anything else that I've missed there? External lighting, the biodiversity action plan, say surface water drainage, standard water usage, solar and PV, was that mentioned that should this go ahead, that should be included? And the local connection.
I do have a draft list of conditions saved.
Yeah, thank you.
In the event that I was overturned, so I'm just trying to find it. So hopefully the Wi-Fi stands.
Councillor Bradford and Hendry, are you, once we've just clarified those, would you be happy to proceed on that basis?
With solar panels.
Yeah.
Totally that. It fits so many tickets.
Somehow.
Can I just ask what the adjacent resident in the house next to where this development is going to take place is concerned about losing his privacy and being overlooked? Could it be a condition that there's trees or some sort of screen to prevent him losing his?
Yeah, so shall I just read out the list that I've already drafted up, and if there's anything else that's missing? Okay, so we would have, there's quite a few, apologies in advance. So standard time limit condition, standard plans condition, a plan to secure the landscaping plan, strategy, sorry, that's shown, and further details. External lighting, because of bats, so bat-friendly lighting, a KEMP for biodiversity, so that's a construction environment management plan for biodiversity. I'm just going to read this one out because it was from the ecologist. A report prepared by the ecological clerk of works or similarly competent person certifying that the required mitigation and compensation measures identified in the KEMP have been completed shall be submitted to the LPA for approval. Also a BEMP, so a biodiversity enhancement mitigation plan. A biodiversity game plan, which is the standard BNG condition. A habitat management and monitoring plan, which again is standard for BNG. A measures only travel statement as required by highways. A condition to secure the footway connection between the southeast corner and the allotments prior to the occupation. That was requested by highways. Another highways request was for further details regarding things like estate roads, footways, etc. So the actual sort of nitty-gritty bits of the road. Sorry, this goes down to Y on those bullet points, so I won't necessarily read them all out unless requested. Construction of the access to appropriate standards. Consolidation of the access in accordance with their standing advice. Cycle parking facilities to be constructed. No obstruction to visibility in the displays more than 600 mils in height. EV charging points, details and implementation. Parking spaces to be delivered prior to occupation. Disposal within the site of surface water to prevent discharge onto the highway. A construction management plan, the standard one that's requested by highways. An arboricultural method statement to be submitted and approved by the LPA. A watching brief for potential land contamination. Submission of a KEMP, so a construction environment management plan, as requested by, I think that's environmental health. All external lighting to only directly illuminate the application site. Materials. No developments commence until submission of detailed and sustainable surface water drainage scheme. So that's what the LLFA have requested. Sorry, I keep just scrolling. Another LLFA condition with details of the future responsibility and maintenance of the surface water drainage scheme. 28 is a flood evacuation management plan. 29 is the surface water drainage scheme. I'm nearly there. Yeah, I promise I'm nearly there. Sorry, I couldn't be, clear. Obscure glazing and restricted opening to first floor windows of plot nearest to the existing property. No additional windows or openings at first floor of the nearest plots. Standard water usage condition and details of bin stores. And then on the screen, we've got the current instruction for section 106 planning obligations. Sorry, I appreciate that was long, but I wanted to make sure that there wasn't anything else that so if there is anything else that members want to add.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yes, there is a landscape condition.
There is.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Considering the list of conditions and that you don't have them in writing in front of you, the suggestion would be that the proposal be to overturn and approve it against the officer's recommendation, with the final list of conditions being under your and the Vice Chair's approval.
Yeah.
Very important. If people are going to be allotments, and I do the green aspect of it all. Sorry, Madam Chairman. The aspect of the green is very, very important on this one. Very, very important.
And sorry for reading them all out. I just wanted, whilst we're all in the room.
No,
You deserve a medal today, really do.
yeah. So thank you very much. So we have that recommendation, which has been seconded to support the housing proposal, overturning the officer's recommendation to refuse. All those in favour, please show. That is unanimous. That is unanimous. Thank you. So I'd like to thank the officer and all speakers. And again, I apologise for the late start, but can I suggest a 5-minute comfort break whilst people leave the building? Thank you. And then we'll resume at 10 to 5. Thank you.
Well done, everybody. Well done. I think with your intervention, of course it is. Of course it is. And the fact that you brought with you jelly baby.
Yeah, I feel a bit sorry for she was.
Must be a long time.
And I guess, that's what I didn't want to say, because that's something a bit. Education, but. Yeah, it's not, I mean, my experience with the one with the older settlers, because I.
Second, be a lot shorter. That's the longest one I've had in here for a long time, actually. Speakers, that's the new rules now, when speakers can come in, can they?
Yeah, well, it's obviously, it's something we maxed out here before, so we couldn't have any more storage on the gear.
All this side.
So we had 2 spaces where we could get. Two of them. It's a police force, isn't it?
The only thing I was concerned about with the building was that it was isolated, it was being isolated from the body of the village, but I don't think that.
I think, couldn't put anything else.
No.
But following it, I thought you made it a damned place.
Yeah, yeah.
If you didn't follow it, I thought you would go to parallel.
What you could call it a cul-de-sac.
I think it's more of a cul-de-sac than.
Yes. But yeah.
Well done anyway. Are you going? Have we got another one? Have we got another?
We've got one more, hopefully
We'll be
it's
here
not
till 8
long.
o'clock, I
I
think.
know.
I was expecting you by now.
How could you forget?
That's something we've got, isn't it?
The amount on the station is maximum, so we're still now into the.
At the match on.
It's just the one self-built storage called, that's what I'm gonna.
Fifty minutes or any.
Self-build isn't gonna create.
Say that. It's normally. Actually, on my end, they. Yeah, we need to.
It's a weird day.
Yeah, well, it's pretty long, but it's much.
Like normally, when I get up. Then I, this morning, I did that, and the connected eye of the curtains, so I still had to put the light back on.
It's only the last couple of years, when last spring the summer came, I had no idea how miserable it was. Not something to do.
Lights tight. I went for physio.
Yeah.
You like the tiger?
She said, you should be taking vitamin D tablets. I said, I understand it, I do. She said, "You're having me to it." So I do. I do have an issue. But there's my kettle. Pull that up, make my own. There's me tablet there, maybe a little bit, it's a big packet, it sits there. Well, then I make a hot drink.
Yeah.
Go away and go. And then I'll come back in the kitchen about an hour and go. I don't remember taking any tablets. So either sometimes I take one. I'm useless at taking tablets. Yeah, I do actually remember to take paracetamol when I'm not about that. But that's great.
They're good if you. My boss is Kenya. Focus.
Yes.
They take them all year round.
Well, yeah. But you did it on weather.
Yeah, it is.
I just want, I mean, even when it's cold, with the sun shining, it's like, oh God, that's really lovely.
Yeah.
Because the one burst at something getting her inside.
It's good one having the first.
Well, this is it. And mine,
It did end up being.
this sort of weather has been unbearably hot in the lounge. It's been like, it's like being in the Caribbean. And I leave the door open and close the rest of the house up. So I'm in there and I'm taking my jumpers off and then I go into the kitchen. The bloody Arctic out there.
It's cold, isn't it?
And what I did today when I came out, assuming I was going to be because I leave my heating at just under 19. It has been. But I turned it up and put it to just under 20. Thinking, oh, the well, I don't mind that. It's just my heating bill's going to be quite large.
Ask them to go out the front roof.
Yeah, well, no, it hasn't been sunny today, so the front of my room. My eyes are itchy. Maybe if you for this, I'm going to feel really bad. If you say we're overriding that as well.
Is your will be alright. So it's going to change on your. Close that down.
Yeah.
Thinks you.
That's okay. Not been said.
Because as long as that's
Yeah, besides the
it's probably the other parables. So try and get to the house.
Not necessarily. I had an invitation. Well, I had an invitation to go of their second house that they built. I had an invitation to a party in December because I'd been going. She promised me I could go around and drink on the balcony. I got an invitation, and then New Year I thought, shit, I forgot. Well, find the bloody message that it was in. I didn't know how she was. It was away.
It's like that's for the town council.
Yeah. I know that she will be away because she can't stand the front, but she's got some sort of illness. She has to be away. I just find it.
You might be middle class now.
Yeah. She'll be back at East. I mean, if I find the message, it's like. Just say, absolutely, I'm just. Yes.
Because 6 o'clock, so 6 o'clock. I'm all over it on now. And how long we got
It took Warren's here, that's great. Shelf is in Chile. Good morning, Pauline. Oh, I don't think I did anything. Who did you contact about bus stops at Chile?
She was only from there.
Yes.
Yeah, not, I mean,
She was really active.
you can only send it to, things like highways, you're not allowed, when you aren't allowed to email individual, the guy that's doing the research, chicken of that.
Thank you, members. Thank you to members of the public for your patience and forbearance. So we'll now go on to the final application of the afternoon, agenda item 6, which is the application for Penarrow New Road, Westling, Taunton. Would you like to take us through the presentation, please?
Good afternoon, everyone. This is for planning application 32250004 at Penarrow New Road, Westling, Taunton. It's an outline application with some matters reserved for the erection of one self-dwelling garage and division of existing curtilage and new access within the existing domestic curtilage of the existing dwelling. I do have a verbal update regarding highways, but I'll address that when I get to the public access plans because I think that makes easiest. So these are the main considerations: the principle of the development, the proposed access, character of the area, residential immunity, and ecology impact. So this is the proposed site plan. So it fronts New Road. It's accessed via the A361 main road. So the existing dwelling is adjacent to Main Road, the A Road, and it follows the rural linear pattern of development along Main Road. So the proposal isn't within a countryside location, and it's outside any established settlement boundary, as you can see on the plan. So on the left-hand side, this is the map view, so the red line plan of the site, you can see in the red. And then on the right-hand side is the aerial view of the site. You can see it's adjacent to the existing dwellings. It's an undeveloped site to the south. So these are the proposed site plans orientated north. So on the left-hand side is the red line of the site and the blue line of the site to indicate the applicant's land. And on the right-hand side is the illustrative site plan oriented northwards. So this is just indicative at this stage because this is an outline application. So this is the proposed access. So this is being agreed under this outline consent as well. So one of the issues we had with the application was the access doesn't meet the requirements of standing advice. So the proposed access is onto a 60-mile-an-hour road, and standing advice requires it to be set back by 2.4 meters with visibility displays of 250 meters in both directions. However, the access is only set back by 2 meters, and the visibility displays is only 40 meters in the south direction and 43 meters in the north direction. So it's contrary to standing advice. However, we did receive an email from the applicant's highway consultant last week, who advised that they disagree with the officer's assessment, and they advised that manual for streets does allow for visibility displays to be set back from the highway by 2 meters. And they considered that the road, considering the conditions of the road, that traffic wouldn't be travelling at 60 miles an hour. So the visibility displays could be lowered. And they also advised that the access for the prior approval, existing prior approval consent on the site 3224000009 had a substandard access that was also considered acceptable at the time. However, I just read out comments we received from Somerset Highways in response to the comments that we received from the applicant's highway consultant. Previous prior approval application was not introducing a new access, rather an additional dwelling being served from an existing access. New accesses would need to be designed appropriately, including but not limited to the provision of suitable visibility displays. It is accepted that the existing access is substandard, but that is not a valid reason for allowing a second substandard access 20 meters away. It is unclear if traffic speed surveys have been undertaken, but they have not been submitted to the local planning authority to inform a lower level of visibility display requirement. New Road is a classified highway, and at the access it is subject to a national speed limit. Classified highways subject to the national speed limit are generally considered against either manual for streets 2 or the design manual for streets and bridges guidance documents, not manual for streets. Paragraph 10.5.8 of Manual for Streets 2 sets out that X distances of 2 meters can be allowed in some slow speed situations where flows on the minor arm, the driveway in this instance, are low. Again, no speed surveys have been provided to show the speed vehicles travelling on New Road or the number of vehicles. Generally, the Highway Authority requires visibility displays to be shown to a point alongside the curb line, although a prop point on the near side of the edge of the vehicle track can be used. Due to the width of New Road, vehicles are likely to be travelling closer to the edge of the carriageway than they would be to offset used in the provided visibility display drawings. Any visibility display should be clear of obstruction above 600 millimeters, not 900 millimeters, as shown on the submitted drawings. For these reasons, the Highway Authority support the planning officer's interpretation of the standing advice document and subsequent recommendation. And this just shows the visibility display to the south. So that's only metres in length, and the standing rise requires 215 metres in length. So these are photographs of the proposed site. So this is the adjoining dwellings at Rosedale and Pen Arun. So this is the photos. So the view on the left-hand side is Pen Arun looking south, and the view on the right-hand side is the front boundary looking towards the north. And this is the view of the southern boundary of the site looking north. And this is the view of the rear of Pen Arun and Rosedale, the adjoining dwellings. So on the screen is the approved plans for prior approval consent under Class AC, which permitted the existing building at Pen Arun to be extended and subdivided into 2 dwellings. So the local planning authority would recommend refusal for 4 reasons on this application, and I'll just explain them. So policy C2 and D9, the local plan, permit infill housing for custom and self-build dwellings following strict criteria. However, the proposal before us wouldn't constitute infilling as defined in those policies, and therefore the proposal would be considered under policy CO1. However, policy CO1 requires development in the countryside to have specific countryside needs. A residential dwelling in this location would not meet that criteria, and therefore it'd be contrary to policy CO1. So the applicant has advised that they have a fallback position. So wherein, as I showed on the previous slide, so the existing main dwelling has prior approval consent under Class AC to increase the size of the existing dwelling and subdivide it. However, we're not accepting that as a fallback position because firstly, it's a not comparable scheme. You can't build one, and so you could build one and the other. They don't overlap on the same site. They're not within the same red line boundary, and there's no betterment offered between the 2 schemes. I'll just scale up the that's the proposed site plan. And then that's the proposed existing, so that's the existing prior approval that already has consent. And therefore, without any acceptable fallback position, the principal development would be unacceptable, and we wouldn't be able to, but we would recommend refusal on those grounds. Secondly, the this has a substandard access, so we'd have to refuse on highway grounds. Thirdly, the proposal would extend past the linear form development along Main Road. So it would extend into the countryside, and that would be encroachment into the countryside, and that would be contrary to the rural character of the area. And then the 4th refusal reason relates to ecology. So the site falls within proximity and the impact zone Somerset Levels and Moors Special Area Protection and Ramsar site. So a nutrient neutrality assessment and mitigation strategy has been submitted, but a preliminary ecological assessment has not been submitted. And without that ecological assessment, the local planning authority wouldn't be able to inform an appropriate assessment of the site, to inform a habitats regulations assessment, which would be required as it affects the European site. And I just wanted to make clear that if members were minded to approve the application, you wouldn't be able to do so until the habitat regulations process has been complete, and you would need to have read that before able to approve the scheme. And also because it conflicts with the European site, that means that the tilted balance wouldn't apply.
So to conclude, the proposed development is not acceptable. The proposal would have a detrimental impact on matters relating to highway safety, the character of the area and ecology, and as such, the proposal was not in accordance with policies CO1, CO2, S2, D2, D9, D14, D19, D20, and D24 of the Sedgemoor Local Plan. And then there's the proposed reasons for refusal in full. Thank you.
Thank you, Eleanor. We have 3 speakers on this application, and I'd like to ask Timothy John Walker to come to the table, please, who is a supporter of the scheme.
Yeah.
Thank you. The microphone is on. We'll start the 3 minutes when you're ready to go.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members of the committee. I'm a retired solicitor with some experience of planning and development, and I've lived in the neighbouring parish of North Curry for more than 30 years. I've frequently driven past this site and am familiar with the local highway network. I've come to address the committee in support of the application because I believe the application should be approved. I think that the report from your planning officer contains material errors and it fails to make proper reference or take proper account of the applicant's agents and highways consultants' submissions. Both consultants are recognised for their expertise and balanced approach to planning, and find the officer's conclusions incomprehensible and inconsistent with decisions on other similar sites and with national and local government guidance and policy. Further, the officers have, in my view, breached natural justice by their very late demand for an ecological survey and their refusal to allow time for the applicant to commission one. She is willing to do that if required. I'm not sure that the ecologist even visited the site. On the planning merits, the site is within an existing residential curtilage. It's not a new greenfield site, nor is it an intrusion into existing open countryside. The speed of traffic on the highway from which access is to be derived is no more than 30 miles an hour maximum, limited by the practical limitations of the junction with the A361 road on the north and the bridge over the railway line on the south. The dwelling will be fully screened from any publicly available viewpoint. If this dwelling is approved, the recently granted permission for the new Class AC dwelling above the existing dwelling will be surrendered, benefiting the neighbouring property and reducing the risks of 3 properties using the existing shared access. Your authority needs a substantial number of new dwellings over the new local plan period. It does not have a 5-year land supply. If it refuses this application and others like it, the need for allocations of more substantial development on greenfield areas in our local villages will increase. If you refuse the application, you will also be acting inconsistently with the recent decision of the council in October 2024 to grant planning permission for a single dwelling at Bramley Road Lane, Bridgewater, a very similar location and application, but without the fallback. I think if you refuse the application, the applicant will have to appeal, and you know well the significant costs and officer time involved in dealing with appeals, costs to be met by the ratepayers and affecting the ability of the officers to deal promptly with planning applications. The applicant's agent cited various other cases, particularly involving Class Q, which are material also to this. The applicant has lived locally more than 30 years, wants to continue to live through her retirement. She's made a huge contribution to the community, and every applicant, including her particularly, deserves a fair hearing. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. I'd like to ask Councillor Bill Revans to come forward, please. And 3 minutes from when you're ready to start.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, colleagues, for the opportunity to speak on this application. Just to emphasise that this application is not for an additional dwelling, but for an alternative dwelling, and the applicants have made it very clear that they're willing to surrender the Class AC application that has already been put forwards and it already has permission as an alternative to this. There are a number of reasons why this application has the support of myself as ward member and
as the parish council and of the parish council of Ling. Ling consists of 3 settlements of East Ling, West Ling, and Outward. Residents of West Ling will be quite surprised to understand that they're not a settlement. That's obviously a planning term, but it also is the exact the situation on the ground is that this is very much within the residential area of West Ling. It is the property on the edge, but it is very much part of that community. The fallback position is the Class AC. I actually think this is a much better application. It's much more in keeping with the street scene. I believe the agent has put forward some diagrams that show the comparison between the new application and the permitted application, and it looks so much better than what's already been permitted. So I think the street scene argument and in sympathy with the local area is really key. We got a technical advisory notice from Michael Bellamy Consulting, very respected former Somerset County Council highways officer in support of the application. We've only just heard the alternative, and I've not had an opportunity to study that. But I know Mr. Bellamy since I was 8, but I know that he's got a significant amount of knowledge in this area, and I do urge you to read his technical notes. The ecological survey points, there's a small amount of laurel hedge that would disappear with the access. It would be easy to put that by condition to be able to replace it. So I'm sure you could condition that. So in summary, this is supported by the local council, supported by local members. Well, I don't know what Councillor Bradford thinks yet, but I suspect the words common sense will come into it somewhere. We know absolutely that this is a sustainable location. The community of West Ling is absolutely a sustainable location. It even has probably the best bus route of any small location with direct bus services, not only to Taunton but up to Bristol. So sustainable under CO1 as well.
Thank you. Finally, can I ask Gary Berry to come forward, please?
Thank you, Chair.
I think you need to turn the microphone on.
Last February, fire approval was granted by this council for a 4-bed dwelling built above the existing semi-detached dwelling. The principles of 2 dwellings on the site has already been established. Rather than building over, my client wishes to erect a self-built 4-bed dwelling in her garden, as there are unquestionable advantages to this, not least to her attached neighbours. I emphasise this dwelling is not an additional dwelling, but an alternative dwelling. The many gains from the proposals were set out within the planning statement, but not stated in the report. The approved build-over dwelling will be fully visible from the public highway and a full story higher. The proposed dwelling will be totally hidden from view behind a continuous fronting hedge, the top of which is more than 4 metres above highway level. Drawings and photographs verifying this were submitted on the 8th of November, but have not been placed on the website. Reason for refusal 1. As alternative dwelling, in lieu of the already approved build-over dwelling is proposed, there is no increase in unsustainability. Reason 2. The development reflects the pattern of residences in the locale and is not alien in form. It will not yet extend development into the countryside, as the site is part of a long-established domestic garden. Reason 3. The highways consultation was a standing advice. I have not seen the highways that was read out today. The planning officer then simplistically viewed the 60-mile-an-hour table, advising a 215 visibility. This is incorrect. Standing advice states that if traffic on a 60-mile-an-hour road is travelling at a lower speed due to road features, then a lesser distance is applicable. Our highways consultant determined the traffic speeds to be 30 miles an hour and recommended a 43-metre visibility. Therefore, Proposed new access accords with standing advice. Highways accepted the 43-metre distance when the prior approval was granted. If the build over dwelling is built, then 3 dwellings will use the existing substandard width access. If the detached dwelling is approved, then only 2 will remain doing so. This is betterment. Reason 4, 11 weeks into submission, the county ecologist demanded an ecology survey and an SHRA. My client agreed to provide these and sought time to do so. This was refused. The agenda report is silent on this delay and the refusal to allow time. Members, ideally will approve this today, subject to the ecology information coming forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, would you like to respond or to points made? And I wonder if we should bring in highways if they're still online.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, sorry. With regard to the principle of development, whether it's a sustainable location, so it's outside of settlement boundaries. So in planning terms, it is within the countryside, and West Link is a row of houses. There's no shops or local schools, which means future occupiers would be dependent on car travel, and so that would be contrary to the advice in the National Planning Policy Framework, and it would be contrary to policies the O1. And then moving on to the character issue. So the Class AC would be an extension to an existing building. So there's already an impact. It would just be increasing the massing of the building, whereas a whole new dwelling and the associated domestic paraphernalia is clearly going to have more impact on the character of the area than an extension to and subdivision of an existing building. I just wanted to highlight that the fallback position, it doesn't form the same site. So that would mean you'd have to have a legal agreement saying you wouldn't implement the prior approval process. So usually when you have a fallback position, they occupy the same footprint, so you build one or the other. But in this instance, schemes aren't comparable. And then in terms of the ecology, that can't be conditioned. So it has potential to affect a European site. So legally, it needs to follow the habitats regulations assessment. Otherwise, it's not a lawful decision and it would be open to legal challenge. So lawfully, the habitats regulations assessment would need to be in front of you before we would be able to recommend approval. The reason we didn't accept the information up front was because the principal development was unacceptable and we didn't want the applicant to incur any wasted on unnecessary costs on ecology surveys, because they're expensive and they take a lot of time. And if we're not going to support the application, that would be unreasonable to expect the applicant to incur that wasted or unnecessary cost. So that was the reason we recommended that it go to committee to establish whether the committee would support the principle. And then we move on to highways.
Thank you. Emma, are you online?
I am, yes. I've lost video link with you, so I don't know if you can see me or hear me.
Yes, we can.
Great. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. Picking up from the comments made there, I think there's kind of 4 elements to address. I was made aware of the highways consultant from the applicant's comments yesterday, and hence the reason that people won't have seen my rebuttal to that. It was provided late yesterday afternoon. The crux of my rebuttal basically revolves around the fact that there has been no evidence provided of the speeds on the road, on the new road. New road is a straight road. It is subject to a 60-mile-an-hour speed limit. I'm not saying that cars are driving at 60. What I'm saying is that nobody has provided evidence of what speed they are driving. And we have to base visibility display requirements on either the 85th percentile of speed surveys or on the posted speed limit. It is noted that obviously there is the bridge to one side of the proposed development and the junction to the other, but the proposed access is approximately 80 metres from the junction. So the speeds on the road won't necessarily be reducing greatly. when heading towards the junction at that point. Again, evidence would be required to show what the speeds are. With regards to the fallback position, as it's being called, the increase of one vehicle using an access point cannot be considered severe, hence the reason that we accepted the prior approval application with what, bearing in mind there was no evidence provided there for the speeds either. We had to accept it because it's one extra on an existing access as opposed to a new access, and the requirements for a new access would be to be in line with visibility displays, amongst other things.
Thank you. Thank you for those comments. Okay, members. Councillor Bradford.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. We also represent West Lynn, the Somerset County Councillor, the Borough Evans and Lynn Parish Council. You heard what Councillor Evans had to say here and the other speakers today. And I'm going to add a bit more to this. I've been travelling New Road since I was 2-year-old. In fact, I can remember very young going out there in a horse and cart out to North Korea up over the bridge. The area which floods now for 3 or 4 months of the year when there's no traffic at all on that road, because that's the way things are. It's designated to be a flood area to relieve Bridgewater. Most of the Taunton water runs out there and it's collected there. If you didn't have that there, Bridgewater would go under at any time. So that new road and the traffic, I think that's wrong. I'm sorry that I disagree with the planning officer today. I shouldn't be very popular tonight, but I can't have that. I've just got to be honest. And I don't agree with the traffic speeds at all regarding New Road. And as for the access, by keeping that big laurel hedge where it's 2, I've had a good look at it, the big laurel hedge where it's 2, and taking away some of the shorter stuff, it will make it a lot safer for both the neighbours and themselves, those cars coming out the entrance. To me, I'm going to use the word common sense, because I do think there's a lot of things in here that is common sense. And it was my application, I'd be pig sick if it was messed about a bit like this, to be honest with you. And as for the ecology study, if that needs to be done, but there's no problem why we can't defer this application and get it done. I know myself, I'm a farmer and I've got several developments been going on in the last 4 or 5 years, and ecology studies are very expensive. So you have to justify all these things. So I'm quite prepared to move this forward and grant a deferral if you insist on the ecology study. But if not, I've got no hesitation in supporting the application. Going against the club of tuition. Sorry, I've got to go against you. Sorry.
Sorry. Yeah. So legally, because it affects the European site, you do have to have the habitat regulation assessment in front of you before you could approve it. Otherwise, the decision would be unlawful and open to legal challenge.
I understand. They're very expensive, I tell you.
So there has been a proposal which hasn't been seconded yet for a deferral pending an HRA assessment. Is that workable in terms of a proposal?
So you could also work to overcome the visibility displays. We'd also need a legal agreement to secure it being self-built, to make it BNG exempt, and also a legal agreement to secure the fallback not being implemented. Yeah, I think you'd have to, yeah, that's what you'd need to make it acceptable.
Thank you. Any other, Councillor Murphy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wonder if you would explain to me, I'm listening, you were very close to the microphone, I have to say, it was becoming more distorted the more you spoke, so it was very difficult. So just as a hint, this is a hint to you. You spoke at length several times about the Belmouth entrance, the display, in terms of visibility. And you mentioned, finally, 215 meters of a display. Could you explain to me what the problem is with the display in terms of 45 and 43 either side? Where does the 215 come in? Can you just explain that?
So the
So
two,
actually, that's critical.
because it's a classified highway at national speed limit, that's 60 miles an hour. So the standing advice from highways means that they have to have a 250-meter visibility display in either direction.
Oh, the side, okay.
Yeah.
250.
15.
15,
Yeah,
and they've only
15.
got 43.
And they've only got 40 and
So
43.
clearly that is not sustainable. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sorry, yes. Yeah.
So would you like the highways officer is available if you want to get it from the experts?
No, I don't need to get it from the experts. I just think if indeed we have a situation where the visibility display is simply untenable in this situation. I mean, it's not possible to go forward with a visibility display of 43 and 45 when it should be 250 either side. Is that correct?
That's correct, unless they can demonstrate through speed surveys that the average speed limit on the road is lower. So this is what the highway consultant is suggesting, but we've seen no evidence of that.
Right. So that's now down to you then. It's down to you and your responsibility if you accept, what I'm trying to say is if you agree to that this mystical speed, because sometimes speeds are, I have to say, we look at country roads and think a speed of 60 miles an hour is not achievable. I mean, going through chicanes and various things, but this is a straight road. So it could achieve 60, 40 to 60, 50, 60, it could achieve that. I mean, do you agree with that?
Could achieve 60 going towards Main Road, the A Road.
It could be.
Yeah.
So this is I have to say, I sympathize with you because it's a very difficult judgment. And I think what you're trying to say, if you could assist us by saying that somehow this display could be, the conditions for this display to be ameliorated, shall we say, from 250, it's a heck of a distance, 250 to 43. Personally, I think it's not possible, in which case your judgment's correct. I'd have to say I support that.
Thank you. Are you making a proposal?
I propose that we accept the officer's recommendation.
Okay, so
based on what I've heard so far, and the list of conditions that are not complied with. I would say that if someone else wants to talk about barrels so they can change the thing and get, that's entirely different. I will happily put forward that proposal. If I may not get a seconder, but I'd like to put that forward.
Okay, thanks. So we've got at the moment two proposals in opposing, neither with seconders at the moment. So Councillor Bradford, if you'd like to speak.
Again, thank you very much. I think it's not easy. It's local knowledge is paramount, right? Imagine that table there. It's the entrance. Where you're sitting
is the house.
Councillor Murphy. No, you're the A361.
Oh, sorry.
You're the A361, right?
Oh, okay.
And that would be about 50 yards from the table, from that pavilion, right? And this way, we're a bridge, we're a humpback bridge going out onto Currymore, which rises and drops down into Currymore, right? Now you ain't going to tell me that that's wrong, having the entrance there. I'm sorry, local knowledge is paramount, and it's just one. In fact, if you don't believe me, or I can't persuade you the wrong way, what I'm going to suggest is a site visit now, and that will really make your minds up. Then it's that you can all have a look and make your own minds up what you want to do. There you go.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Filmer. Oh.
Pause for a moment.
Yeah.
If we're moving to any deferral, if we can have a moment with you to provide a list.
Yeah.
Of
Okay, I don't. We reached that.
put it on the cards.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Filmer, then Councillor Martin.
What is difficult in the sense that we've heard there's this ecological survey. If that's going to be done, that's going to take time and it's going to cost quite a lot of money. What I don't want to do is put the applicant to the expense of doing that if we're then going to turn it down on something else. In terms of the access, I can understand the logic of last time it was sharing an access, so it was an existing access, you can't change it. Now an additional access, and we've got this issue of is it a 60-mile-an-hour road or not. We've heard local evidence that they don't drive at that, but there's no empirical evidence for us to back that up with at the moment. if we were looking at having that evidence supplied, that at least would get us over that hurdle, but that still doesn't solve the other. I wouldn't want to go for just a blanket deferral for the ecology, because I think, as I say, there's a danger that we get them spending a lot of money doing something that we then end up cutting them off at the knees for some other reason. So I would hate to go down the route of a site visit, but the only reason why I'm thinking that might make some logic is if the applicant had actually got the evidence to do with the speeding road, which according to this Mike Bellamy, who I've known in the past, is what he's saying is the evidence he's got, that could be submitted for the next meeting without putting into any extra work, but I don't know whether that is feasible or not.
Officers, would you like to come back on that aspect?
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Filmer. But I'm not sure how far the applicant's highway consultant is on providing any sort of speed surveys. So we'd need to go back and check with him.
Thank you. Okay, so we have
Councillor Martin.
Councillor Martin. My blind on.
No worries at all. It's for clarification really more than anything else. I mean, I must say out front, I don't have any problem with this application. I don't have the local knowledge that my esteemed colleagues do have. So I am a bit out on a limb with it. But my only question was regarding the HRA requirements. Is there anything in there that would require the applicant to wait until spring, summer to get details on the HRA, or can it all be done?
So they'll need a preliminary ecological assessment. It depends what that survey finds. If it finds something that's in seasonal use and it needs further surveys, and they would have to wait to the summer to do that.
Yeah.
So at this stage, we don't know.
Right, so you'd have to do the initial one would determine whether we wait until spring, summer to get a complete one. Okay, in which case I'm with Bob again, then it would seem unfair to ask the applicant to jump through more hoops if we're going to knock it backwards in the future. But that's lovely. Thank you.
Councillor Murphy.
It's just a clarification. I am fascinated by this particular data that you've given up. There's 250 to 41, 43, 42. It's a heck of a reduction. I mean, you know, when you consider it, to how could you please tell me how you get to 250? Why is it 250?
Emma, can you?
I was about to say, if I may interject, the 215, it's 215, not 250, just for clarification. Thank you. It is a nationally set figure for a 60-mile-an-hour speed limit road, and it is basically a calculation on how quickly a vehicle travelling at 60 miles an hour could stop if somebody pulled out in front of them.
Thank you very much. So therefore, the question that is being asked by the opposite side, if I may say, is, you know, when you consider the car is coming forward to the entrance exit, is 40 meters. 40 meters it is. 40 meters or 40 feet?
43 meters.
43 meters. 43 and 42, I think it was. Or anyhow, apart from that, 40 and 43, I think it is. Is that enough? I mean, at what speed would the car have to be doing to justify 40 to 43? Can I ask you that question?
You certainly can, and I'll jump back in again if I may. 43 meters represents a 30-mile-an-hour speed stopping distance.
So the question really is, can we judge that that road will be a maximum of 30 miles per hour, or double that speed, a 60 miles per hour? Nothing in between, just those two. And I would suggest that we are not able to do that. I mean, I think if the judgment is it's a 60-mile-an-hour road, then we have to go with the judgment. I'm sorry, but in terms of, I can see that this is a very very difficult point. But 30 miles an hour to 60 is a heck of a, it's a lot of responsibility for someone to sort of throw that away.
Chair,
Mr. Chairman, thank you.
May I interject again, Chair?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. There are differing distances between 30 miles an hour and 60 miles an hour. What is being put forward at the moment is just below what would be required for a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit. The difference, of course, is a lawful speed versus a demonstrated speed. And what they haven't done is provide the demonstrated speeds, so a speed survey. To pick up on a point raised earlier, it's approximately 80 metres from the access to the junction. So if you're going past the properties from the bridge to the junction, it is going to be approximately, and it is an approximation, 90 to 100 metres, within which, yes, you do need to slow down for the junction, but you could also pick up speed going either way, towards the bridge or towards the junction. You could pick up speed in excess of 30 miles an hour. So that's where the demonstration and the speed surveys need to be provided to us to allow us to take a lower level for visibility on a 60-mile-an-hour speed limit road. I hope that's helped.
Thank you. Yes. Councillor Martin, then Councillor Grimes.
Thank you, Chair. But I worry that we are getting into the weeds of academic minutiae with regard to this 30-60 argument. Again, with no disrespect to my learned colleagues. I mean, I live on Mearway Lane, which is also a 60 mile an hour lane, and my front door goes out straight onto the lane. Although it's a 60 mile an hour lane, nobody would do 60 down there because you'd be daft. You'd come across a cow pretty quickly. Nobody would want to do that. The difference between academic theory and the real world's very different. And I just worry that we're going around in circles with this, which isn't. It's not the way life is. I'm getting a bit tired now, Chair, so I'm losing my words.
That's the grind.
Thank you, Chairman. I think we need to move this on. And if Councillor Murphy is going with the officer's recommendation, then I will second that. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Just to check up legal advice, as the proposal was made to support the application first, but has no seconder yet. That's fallen. That has no seconder. So I now have the substantive, is that right? Recommendation to support the officer's recommendation to refuse. All those in favour, please show. That is carried. 7. Those against?
Yeah, sorry, I missed that.
Those against that recommendation?
Could I ask for clarification here?
You can.
We're in the same. So tired. We're in the same. We are asking to support the officer's recommendation, which is to refuse.
That's right.
So those that put their hands up
Yeah.
now want the application to be refused.
Yeah.
Right.
Are we all
As you
clear?
were.
Yeah, we're all clear. All right, so that's 7 in favour of that recommendation or proposal. Are those against? 1. Thank you. 2. Thank you. And so that's all the committee members. No abstention.
Rest local knowledge.
Okay, so the officer's recommendation is carried. Thank you. So that concludes the applications for this afternoon. We'll just go on now to the appeal reports.
Are you taking those?
So in terms of appeals decided between 28th November.
Can we need to finish the meeting.
So we've only got 2 appeals decided between 28th of November and 2nd of January. Both were in line with the refusals. Both appeals have been dismissed. and the recommendation, also the decisions of the inspector followed our reasoning in relation to the tilted balance and the need to preserve open countryside.
Yeah, okay. Thanks. Does anyone have any questions about the appeals reports? No? Okay, well then I will conclude the meeting and thank members and officers for all contributions. Declare the meeting closed.